let's imagine that you're building a company and you want to get to, let's say, $50 million in sales. Great. So you're not enormous, but you're pretty big. So there's two ways to get there. Like, you can sell as much stuff as possible in the first 5 years and get to $50 million in sales and have your business fall apart because everybody hates your products and they hate you and they hate your ads and all that sort of stuff. And so that you're thinking transactionally, or you can spend 5 years figuring out exactly what your customers want, how you want to treat them. And maybe it takes you 7 years or 10 years to get to $50 million in sales instead of 5. But taking that slower route has given you more time to build an amazing infrastructure and to build a culture around service. And that matters so much.
Welcome to a new episode of the CVO Live. I'm here with Tim Kilroy, which is a fantastic dude from the e-commerce industry. We met a few years ago and we had some fun together at various events. Tim, how's it going? And please do the official intro about what you do in the e-commerce space.
Yeah. So thanks for having me here. I'm super excited. I love hanging out with you. And I did say that you are the funniest guy in e-commerce, but you demurred. My name's Tim. I do a couple of things. I'm an agency coach, so I help agencies that are mostly focused on e-commerce, helping e-commerce providers scale. And also, I own an agency that focuses on mostly direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands, and we help them scale as quickly as their budgets will allow, and also profitably, because we're really focused on building sustainable businesses, not businesses that are flashes in the pan.
Yeah, there are lots of those these days. So
yeah, exactly.
So tell us a bit about how you've got first into this digital e-commerce marketing arena.
So we're going to go into the Wayback Machine. So imagine this: it's the late 1990s. Cell phone networks were 2G, and dial-up was, a lot of people still had dial-up. And a friend of mine actually went to work for a startup in San Francisco, a friend of mine from Boston. And he needed help. At that point, I had been working in retail, at a sharper image store. And he said, you know what, I need somebody who understands retail and who's smart. Can you help us out? And so at that point, I started helping their clients. That company was a comparison shopping engine back in the 1990s. And so I started working, servicing e-commerce merchants then, and have pretty much stayed touching e-commerce either as either on the client side, or the retailer side. I was a CMO at a fashion company, as you can tell by my outfit. Very, very fashionable here. And I also worked at big e-com players like Wayfair, but the vast majority of my time has been sort of spent on the agency side, helping really big agencies, small agencies and big agencies grow, and also small retailers and big retailers grow. Because we've worked with everybody from from a local antique store all the way up to a Fortune 10 company. So we've been through the gamut, and right now our agency Ecom Allies is so laser focused on killing this idea of return on ad spend, because it is just a bad metric. Like when I tell customers that The return on ad spend that you see from Facebook isn't the same as the return on ad spend you see from Google AdWords. They're like, what? How can that be true? But the fact that everybody measures everything differently. Someday I'm going to write a book that tells me that, the title I think is going to be Everything I Needed to Learn About Business I Learned in Retail. A million years ago, so this is like in the early 90s at the store, The Sharper Image, we would have great customers. We sold gadgets and all that kind of stuff. And we'd have these customers come in and drop a lot of money on cool stuff. And then you took your top 50 customers, because we were all paid on commission, and you'd write them a note, like handwrite a note and mail it to them, back in the olden days when people still did that. And because we knew that when you created a relationship with somebody and you understood them and you were able to think like, oh, we've got this product coming in that they're going to like, I should tell them right now so they can come in and buy it. That's exactly what we do today in e-commerce. We alert people through advertising. Hey, there's stuff here to buy. And then through email and text and all sorts of events and all that sort of stuff, we take our best clients and we say, hey, there's stuff here that we really think that you're going to love. And, and we've carried that, that sort of methodology of thinking about customer first rather than brand or, or financial metric first. We really want, because the real name of the game in any sort of selling environment is relevance. And so, everything that we do as a business really needs to focus on relevancy as its core tenet.
I think you read my newsletter from yesterday, or I suspect that we are.
I did not. But
Yeah.
like great minds
Yeah.
think alike. I mean, if you think about it, look at us. We both get we get the same haircut. We get the Do you have glasses?
And glasses are on their way also, because I'm aging, and basically presbyopia is not gonna excuse me from her agenda.
Yeah.
So Tim, regarding customer first, I wanna address a topic together with you. As you know, the purpose of this podcast is to focus on customer value and how to create customer value in order to get more customer lifetime value. My question for you is, what changed in the process? I mean, you've said that, a million years ago, we used to have 50 clients. We used to write to get handwritten notes to them and saying them thank you. And we used to be customer first. What happened, and how can we get there, or how can we think again with the customer first approach?
So from like a macro perspective, a couple of things happened. In retail, companies got really big. Best Buy, bit large retail chains, they got really big. They got private equity dollars that focus on maximizing quarterly profits rather than lifetime value. So that made, and so the easiest place to squeeze in that kind of business isn't on products or advertising. It's on the people in it. So they really crushed down the personal touch, in the in-store experience. And at that same time, technology started getting really good. So it became really easy to push out a bunch of junk to anybody that could listen. So once it cost $0 to send out an email, or it only cost a few pennies to launch a banner ad, it didn't matter. You'd make up for the lack of relevance through scale.
Yep.
And that works for a time. But what really has changed it? What has really, really forced the change? It isn't personalization and it isn't first-party data. it's the rise of direct to consumer brands. People that the only advantage they have is their relationship. So once folks like Warby Parker, that's where I get my glasses, or Allbirds or Bonobos, where it all became about the fact that we as a brand understand you, the consumer, and isn't that awesome? We get along really well, and we believe the same things you do, and we understand your sizing needs, and we understand, your wants for convenience and style. Once we got to that point, consumers thought like, oh, you know what? Walking into a Best Buy is terrible. Buying a unbranded marketplace product from Amazon may be cheap, but it's terrible. I would much rather engage with somebody who understands me. And since then, since Bonobos, there has been a huge rush, an enormous rush to recreate that kind of direct relationship with the consumer. I mean, Andy Dunn really changed everything. And so in many respects, what is happening today in e-commerce, focus on consumer lifetime value, focus on personalization, focus on VIP treatments and, loyalty programs. Everybody is chasing Andy Dunn's idea of bonobos. It doesn't, and it doesn't really matter what you're selling. Everybody's chasing that same idea.
We have a question, Tim, from Elisa, but I think she should rewrite it because I don't get it. But what about the CA power? Do you get it? Because e-commerce without a powerful customer service is just another e-commerce. So Elisa, if you can rephrase the question.
Yeah, I'm guessing things like customer service. Yeah, so customer service is hugely important. Now, if you've got really good products and you're really thoughtful, your customer service needs are lower. But yeah, you need to have great customer service all the time, because customer service is just post-sale advertising. It's like post-sale marketing, right? Because if somebody has a great experience with you when they've got a problem, they're not going to be like, oh, they had a problem. I had a problem and it was easy to fix. They're not going to keep that to themselves. They're going to think like, wow, I am so used to being, abused by the people I spend money with. If you've ever tried to call your mobile phone company or a utility or your mortgage company, all of those people you spend money with generally give you pretty terrible customer service. And if you are treated like a human being by a retail organization, you're like, wow, like I feel so loved. And that's, and so customer service you shouldn't be thinking of it as an ops, as part of your operations or logistics. It's part of your marketing and customer experience. That's your brand right there.
All right, so Elisa, I've promoted your comment on the screen. So yeah, I think we all agree on this end now. Tim, going further regarding customer service, you can't have a fantastic customer service if you don't have people which actually care, because you've touched this dichotomy between let's make more profit and let's serve customers better. And where you draw the line is the question, because you can over deliver to your customers, but maybe too much and you become not so profitable. Or on the other hand, you could be very, strict about your profits and basically don't invest in customer service, don't care about if people are pissed off. You just push marketing dollars on Facebook ads or whatever kind of ads, and that's it. You expect for the best now. But now we are assisting a shift, and I want to touch this this current present moment as you are seeing it, because you are in the trenches there. You work with agencies and you also work with the e-commerce clients yourself.
Yeah, so this is all about deciding how you want to take the journey. So you can, let's imagine that you're building a company and you want to get to, let's say, $50 million in sales. Great. So you're not enormous, but you're pretty big. So there's two ways to get there. Like, you can sell as much stuff as possible in the first 5 years and get to $50 million in sales and have your business fall apart because everybody hates your products and they hate you and they hate your ads and all that sort of stuff. And so that you're thinking transactionally, or you can spend 5 years figuring out exactly what your customers want, how you want to treat them. And maybe it takes you 7 years or 10 years to get to $50 million in sales instead of 5. But taking that slower route has given you more time to build an amazing infrastructure and to build a culture around service. And that matters so much. Because so here's the, to go back to macro for just a second.
Yeah.
There is just in some respects, VC funded companies where it's growth at all costs at all times, or companies that end up being publicly traded, they've got to serve two masters. They've got to serve a non-involved shareholder or investor, someone who's not in the business, and they've got to serve their clients. And guess who is more important? Because client might give you a $75 sale. An investor might give you $750 million. Who do you think you're going to listen to more as an executive at a company? The guy's going to give you $750 million, so you can, that you're generating generational wealth for your family, or are you going to think like, God, Joanne from Sioux City, Iowa, she had a rotten experience with us. What can we do to make her $50 purchase right? So the incentives are unbalanced, and so much of it, I think, is I mean, this isn't a criticism. This is actually an unexpected byproduct of professional investing into retail business, right?
Yeah.
It's an unintended consequence, but it's really true. So for a while, let me just tell a really quick story. There is for about 6 or 8 months, I worked as the interim VP of e-commerce at a really great family-owned retail, a Canadian furniture retail company. There were, I don't know, 5 or 8 stores and doing 9 figures in revenue. But the fact that it was family owned and they didn't have to satisfy investors allowed them to take way more care of their clients. And they're in Central Ontario, and the 90s and early 2000s weren't really kind to that economy. And in response to that, the company thought like, oh, how can we serve more people? How can we serve more people that have been affected by the auto industry layoffs? How can we have the fact that manufacturing and industry has left this area? How can we help these people who still live here? And so then they arranged to put together their own financing program, and they would basically finance just about anyone. So good. I mean, they made a ton of money doing their own financing. Don't get me wrong, but this was like the kind of financial engineering that made it possible for people to get the stuff that they needed: a couch, a washing machine, a chair. And it allowed and it also forced that person to have a relationship with this chain, because they had to pay them every month. and it was much more personal. And so that's a powerful example of how someone who's not thinking about this quarter can invest in creating relationships that last decades.
Yeah, I think it's counterintuitive, Tim. And if we look from, I don't know, from a 40,000 feet above, we 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 can say for sure. I mean, we all know that if we behave well, people are going to behave well towards us as well. We
Yes.
do know this in our lives as well. You need to behave. We have all these things from our parents. However, companies are have became so stubborn about the way they are making decisions. And even though they think that they are data driven, I was looking at the statistics that only 6% of the decisions are actually data driven in economy. So it's outstanding. We have all this data. Everyone talks about data driven, data oriented, whatever, and about the customer centricity. However, the decisions that people in important positions, let's say the hippos, are taking without taking into account this simple figure like, are customers happy? Are our customers happy? And they don't have a seat in their boardroom. So what they are doing is they come up from the retail industry. They come up with this impersonal approach towards who's paying for the products. So the customer doesn't have any kind of voice. And they don't realize that, hey, we now have identifiable customers. We can see what our best customers are saying, are doing afterwards, how they are behaving, and we can monitor this. It's called customer lifetime value. It's called customer satisfaction. There are all these metrics to satisfy their data-driven approach. However, we know that, but I don't know any single company, and I'm in this industry for how long. I don't know any single company which is actually constantly monitoring and adjusting their long-term strategy based on customer lifetime value. So customer lifetime value is like a byproduct. Oh, and there's that. Let's look at that. It's not like their central guidance for their strategy. And I think that has a lot to do with this, let's say, silos, with that relationship that you've said about between the decision makers, like the CEO of a retailer versus the relationship with the board. How is the EBITDA doing this quarter? And even though we know that it's a long-term investment to invest in customers that are becoming your fans, we don't do that. I mean, they are not doing this. And I want to, if you want, let's figure out which are the reasons behind that. I mean, why CEOs are not waking up to this new reality from the retailers. I mean,
so here's a thought. I'm just going to jump back to the sort of the family-owned business for just a minute.
Yeah.
And not that this is the perfect model, but family-owned businesses, by and large, the founder or a family member was in that store. They had to talk to customers. And now, especially in e-commerce, customers are very far away from executives. And certainly when you're thinking about, how do you think about the health of your business in aggregate, as an executive? Well, you're going to look at financial reports, and you're going to look at data that tells a story. And the problem with data is it's all a look backwards. It's like what we did do. Mm-hmm. But if you actually have to talk to a customer, you have to think about what you are going to do in that moment. And that's a dramatic shift. So marketers, executives are all making decisions based on aggregate data from the past. And that doesn't give them the opportunity to make a decision based on circumstances in front of them, because the best policies and the best sense of engagement come from those things that happen on a human level, not on a financial level, not on a, not on a, this is going to be good for our brand or not. This is much more about like, wow, I'm standing in front of this person who's really not happy. How do I fix that?
Yeah.
Right. And so, part of it is the, the e-commerce has given marketers and retailers an unparalleled reach into potential customers, but it has by getting that reach, they had to take a step backwards from actual human interaction.
Yeah, and relevancy as well, because they have a one-size-fits-all approach, which I'm coming from a communist country, that
works really well, right?
one-size-fits-all approach. Yeah, basically we've got acquainted with that, but we are applying it in capitalism as well. I mean, companies, they are doing this one-size-fits-all approach. They simply broadcast to everyone the same discounts. They are pissing off their existing companies, the existing customers, to acquire new ones. I mean, look what happens in the telecom industry. It's every time I'm having the worst offer is because I'm staying 15 years with the telecom industry.
Right.
Because I'm that fool that keeps on paying. I'm not the new bright shiny new customer, and that the CMO can brag about their friends. We acquired 2 million customers last year. Yeah. And
right, because that's growth at all costs.
Yeah.
Now, so let's the reasons for that are again, these are all unintended consequences of good ideas, right? So how do we change that? Like what do we think about? And kind of the thought or the paradigm right now is, we will solve it through email flows and personalization. That's how we're going to solve it. And that certainly helps, right? Having relevant marketing happening on a frequent basis, it does help. But I'm going to challenge e-commerce companies. They have to be of a certain size to be able to do this. But way back when, when people had real stores and the internet was just sort of evolving, I worked with a bunch of companies. They all happen to be fashion companies.
Yeah.
That had customer advisory boards.
Fantastic. Yeah. We wanna apply this as well. We have this in the back of my
there's this company called Delia's. They were a teen fashion company, and they had these like random clients that they thought were representative of their group. And they really just picked random shoppers and invited them to be on a customer advisory board. And they would get together every quarter and talk about like, hey, do you like these clothes? Can you go shop in this store and see what the experience is like and that sort of stuff. And so they were getting, not completely unbiased feedback, because, there was some cachet and some, but they were getting a user focused or a shopper focused look at their operations and their merchandise and their policies, because they invested in talking to customers, like real customers on a regular basis, not just, they just didn't do a survey or generate a net promoter score. They brought, this handful, I think there was a dozen of them, they would talk to them like human beings and get their feedback. Now that's hard to do, and it may not always be pleasant to do, but if you are a company that's willing to do that or something similar, you can get sort of unvarnished, unbiased feedback.
For sure. It's
so a long time ago, Wayfair, before it was Wayfair actually, used to have executives jump on the phones, the customer service phones, for a week during the holidays, just to see just so they could see what it was
And
like.
feel, yeah, and feel on their skins.
Yeah, exactly. And I think more companies should do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also when they do that sort of thing, they just can't pay lip service to it. They have to have a mechanism by which to actually push the data or the findings from that into, building better and different processes.
Yeah. Tim, regarding these reasons, I mean, you already gave a fantastic idea. I mean, establishing a customer advisory board, listening to your customers, but in an active way, an in-depth way, not like a broad survey that you blast everyone and ask your 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, because the response rate drops after 6 questions or 8 or whatever. So it's like in-depth customer advisory
and
board.
also the questions on those surveys are usually something like, do we suck really badly or are we okay?
Are we really, really that bad? Yeah. However, there are still ways to leverage those as well. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's all about having some sort of a connection with the customers, because the worst thing that you can do is to simply transport, send packages from A to B and not even care about if the package went well, if customers actually got their shoes, or if these are good or bad. I mean, the first degree of communication, it's actually to close the loop, and there are still a lot of companies which are not even closing that loop. I mean, they simply sell and then they sell again, and then they do a discount campaign, and then they sell. And if the customers are not back in 6 months, guess what they are doing? They are sending a "we are missing you" campaign. Buy again because we have this $10 voucher for you. So basically, I think the first level is to actually find something about the emotions of your customers. What I wanted to touch as a next topic in our conversation, Tim, is regarding where do you think the e-commerce agencies are going to go? Because we are seeing this. There's a bloodbath out there in the acquisition space. ROS is not helping at all. Attribution, it's I don't know. It's
imaginary.
Yeah, it's a fail. Yeah, it was like a witch hunt or something. It was that term.
It was like a magical spell that people thought, technology can figure out attribution, but
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you is regarding this type. On one end, we have e-commerce companies which are not getting all this data and all these mechanisms, and there are people which are not having this sophistication regarding data and collecting data. And these are the e-commerce owners on one end, which are being swamped into logistics and product assortment and fulfillment and compliance and whatever. And on top of that, they also have the marketing burden on their shoulders. And on the other hand, we have agencies which right now, they start to understand that the brief that they are getting from e-commerce companies is not like send some emails instead of us. It's like send the relevant emails that will make our customers happy so that they can come back, buy again, and become our brand ambassadors. And that requires some degree of data that should be collected and some sort of empathy, like if it's that thing called the digital empathy. And my question for you is, where do you think the e-commerce agencies are going? Do you think that they will, let's say, the ones that are going to survive and thrive are going to become at this data-driven and customer-centric approach, or do you think there will still be specialized channel agencies in the future?
So there will always be channel-specific agencies, and they will have likely some sort of tactical or process advantage over a company that does a lot of things. Using a screwdriver is a much better experience than using the screwdriver on your Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
However, here's what I think is happening in the agency space, and it's happening really rapidly. Channel-specific agencies are being challenged. We'll just talk about Facebook. People who've been doing paid social for a while. So paid social, a lot of for a long time, paid social was about knowing which button to push or lever to pull, right? And then all of a sudden, and that was just on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden TikTok showed up, and brand owners are thinking, well, TikTok and Facebook are similar enough, you should do that too. And so that has happened. And a lot of agencies are like, oh my God, there's more money, give it to me. Perfect, that's fantastic. But here's what's going to happen with agencies. Agencies right now, or most agencies, the biggest agencies do extraordinary stuff. But the average agency, an agency, let's say that's under $50 million in revenues a year, most of them they're executing, right? They are, they're saying, great, give us your idea. We'll split it up and we'll make things sort of cohesive, and then we'll press go and it'll be fantastic. Well, what's going to happen and what it is happening is that we see that we've got the place where agencies used to excel, sort of execution, that is becoming table stakes. And so agencies will have a level of executors, and those are basically this is going to sound terrible, but these are like digital factory workers, campaigns. Are they working? Are they not working? Send this report, And then on top of that, we're bringing the idea of advertising back into marketing. And so suddenly creative is a huge need for every agency today, because relevancy is not quite as sharp as it once was. So creative that sort of proclaims your client's particular attributes, provides more relevancy, right? Because it pulls the right people in. So there will be this execution level, there will be a creative imagination level, and then here's the hardest thing for agencies. It is this level that maximizes return on understanding, ROU, not ROAS or ROI, but ROU. So it'll be these people that really understand the business of their customers, of their clients, and they understand the finances of their clients. They understand the customer personas of their clients. They understand the customers of their customers, right? And so the best agencies will really turn into people who are business consultants that solve problems through advertising, not people who pull the digital, the digital press to print another ad. And so this is much more about being really smart and empathetic and understanding the strategic things that your client wants to achieve, and making sure that your strategy and execution supports that in every respect. And by the way, increasing revenue and profits is not a strategic objective. A strategic objective is something like, we want to get our next swath of great customers in this category. We want them to buy this kind of product first, because that's important to us as a business, because that's where our brand is going. That's where we've got logistic, benefits. That's where we've got money, right?
Yeah, and maybe that's what our best customers are buying, because we looked at the data and we've seen that the customer lifetime value is 2 times higher if they start buying this first product, not the other one. So I think that has a lot to do, Tim, with the, let's say, a conscious approach, where you as an agency are aware about the customers that your customers need, and basically closing the loop by being data aware, let's say. Unfortunately, we are about to finish the time allocated for this episode. However, I want to ask you a last question.
Yeah.
What is the biggest, let's say, hiccup that you've seen in companies treating their customers?
Oh, that's hard to
Or one
answer.
of them.
Um,
I know there are many, but
so I think the biggest issue is when people say things like, "I understand," or "I'm sorry that that happened to you," but then they don't fix it. And so I think the biggest issue is when people are not allowed to fix the problems that their customers show.
yeah, love it. We have this we have this approach on helping our own customers do this type of real-time customer satisfaction um, um, surveys, and then based on how important is the client, based on the RFM segment, based on the product that they've bought, and based on the scores, to actually prioritize a ticket and someone to pick up the phone and to call them. Because what we've seen, and that's why I think one is the problems with the NPS, the problem is that companies are collecting NPS. They look at it every quarter. They look if it's higher or lower, and then nothing happens. And you, as a customer,
Right.
you are pissed off. You tell them, "Hey, you've done this, and the other, and you should fix that thing," and then nothing. I mean, this is worse than even not asking me how it was my experience.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
faux empathy. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah.
I can understand that you're frustrated.
Yeah,
But I'm not going to fix your problem.
Tim, we need to do the next episode of another episode of the CVO Live together.
Anytime.
And also, I want to invite you officially to speak at our biggest event called the CLV Revolution in September. So you'll be one of our speakers if you want as well.
I've already accepted, and I will. And
Perfection.
I'll be there. And
so
maybe.
Now it's public.
Yeah, right. And maybe just maybe we can break into song like we did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we can, and maybe we can plan ahead. To give the audience some options. What would they prefer?
Exactly. Man, we are going to go so viral. It's going to be amazing.
Tell me about it. All right, Tim. It was great chatting with you again, man. Maybe we'll do a duo. Pretty soon in September, and until then, stay safe. If someone wants to get in touch with you, I presume you are easy to find on LinkedIn, or do you have
Kilroy.com or ecomallies.com?
Perfection. Then that being said, thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and thanks, Tim, for joining me, and see you at the next episode.
Bye-bye.